Okay, so hello everyone. This is Divyam Solanki, design lead for GDSC IIIT-V chapter. So welcome to the session 2 for the Solutions Challenge 2022. So in this workshop, we'll be mainly discussing some visual and product design practices, and we will also do some hands-on exercises that we need to get skills in the both of these disciplines. So let's move on to the next slide. So the first thing that is, what is visual design? So let's just start by finishing this sentence. So you have the chat box. Everyone can just type what you think is the finish of the sentence, like what should visual design mean according to you. So you can take a moment and just type in the chat box. So anyone? What is visual design according to you? What does what comes to your mind when you think about visual design? Something, color, brand, website, UI UX, something. Just write. Okay, so make things appealing. Prototype of an app or website. Yes, make things appealing is something that is what visual design means. Okay, so something which enhances the appearance. Right, so design for the website. So great. So let's take a look what it actually means. So next slide. So visual design basically serves three purposes. So the first thing first is to establish credibility. So when a user comes onto your website for the first time, you need to establish the credibility. So visual design helps in that. So the second thing is to communicate a brand or personality. So visual design can help you build your brand and communicate the brand. So visual design is important in that way, and also to enhance the usability. So you must have heard about UX, user experience. So if you go on to any of the websites like Instagram or Twitter, you will find that the user experience is quite refined there, as well as the visual aspect. So this is something that establishes credibility in the app. So Twitter is something that we go on to usually. So and also it communicates a brand or personality. So we will look on it in the coming slides. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so the first thing that we need to understand about visual uh, design is information hierarchy. Okay, so information hierarchy is used to guide the user's attention. So what will user see first when he she comes to the website or an app? So that is something that we convey using information hierarchy. So next slide. So like you can see in this example, so there is a para written on the screen. This is a very bad example of information hierarchy. Your eyes are faced on a block of text and you don't have any idea what is written there and how to pass it, how to like get the information out of it. It's quite intimidating and many users won't even begin to read this. I think that most of you won't read this if you get a search result or if you get any website that looks like this, right? So you may recall that some ancient websites written in HTML and no CSS have this kind of appearance. So you won't begin to read this, right? So let's move on. Okay, so this is still bad, but better than the last one. So we have broken up the block into more digestible texts. So, but still there is no true hierarchy. We don't know what is the title of the information that we are seeking. So, but is the topmost block important or the middle one or the last one? So we don't know what it is. So therefore it is still bad. So ये वाला visual design is also not great. We can still improve from this. Okay, so this one is kind of okay. uh, Things are getting better, we can see. So we have maintained the new lines from the last iteration, but we have added the font weight, that is boldness. So we can say here that vision AI is something that we were looking for, and this search result came, and we can say that the first para after Vision AI is the information that we needed. So we can now distinguish between headers and secondary headers, and we can tell what is more important, what is least important, right? So this is better according to the information hierarchy. So the user will directly go on to the first para and read about this. So Vision AI is the topic of the thing that the user is seeking or the website is presenting to him. Okay, next slide. So this information hierarchy is good. So you must have seen this on Google or some of the uh, websites. So we can say we have used color. So you can see that there is color difference between the title topics and the paragraphs. You can also see that there is some boldness and font size is differentiated. And we have also added a grid system. So you can see that auto ML Vision and Vision API. So both of these are separated in the vertical fashion. So this clearly has a header, it has a subtext, it has secondary and tertiary header. So we know what we want. We can pass this information quite easily. So if you compare this thing to the first one that we looked, that the para one, so you can see that we have improved a bit. We have improved a lot actually, and now we can see what we were looking for, and the user will definitely read this, and he will get the information right away. Right. So let's move on. Okay, so next thing we look is color. So color is basically used to communicate a brand or personality. We will see an example regarding this. Next slide. Okay, so what everyone just take a moment and think about what famous company you think of after you look at the color. So the first one, top left one, so the blue color one, just write in the chat box. What company do you think when you look at this color palette? Meta. Okay. So Meta was previously called,
Facebook.
okay, Facebook. That is great. So like you see that the color itself told us which company we are talking about, right? So Facebook. Okay, so this is correct. So the next one, we are moving to the next one. Right one, green color. Which company do you think? And day-to-day use. Okay, Spotify. JFG. That is also correct. Okay, so GFG is something that we computer science students use. Okay, so the next one, the blue one,
Twitter.
Twitter. That is correct. So Twitter is like you see the color palette, and definitely Twitter is the thing that comes to your mind first thing first. And the last one, right bottom. So
Google.
yes, that
Google.
is
Google.
also correct. That is also correct. You can and also Microsoft. Yes, Microsoft. So somewhere between 20, like Windows 10, this was a color palette for Microsoft also. But the first company that comes to mind is Google. So the Google G logo that we use day to day daily is, so you can say here that color is something that helps to create your brand, right? So these companies have made their brand using colors only. So this is a powerful thing, you can see, right? So let's move on. So we have looked into two things. So the first one was information hierarchy, the second one was color. So you can definitely improve your UI as well as UX using both of these things. Let's move on to the next topic, which is grid system. Okay, so what is grid system? So grid system basically break up space into regular units. So you can say that they're dividing the information into some chunks, dividing the information on a web page into some chunks, right? So let's move on. Okay, so what does grid systems do? They provide clarity, efficiency, economy, and continuity. So like in the previous example where we were talking about information hierarchy, we saw that we divided the information in some grids. We will see it again in the coming slides. But you can see that they provide clarity. So you can definitely differentiate among the title, subtext, right? That way. So grid systems are important. And the next thing is they organize information on the page. Definitely this is something that we use grid systems for. Okay, so we will move on to the previous example and old example. So let's move on to the next slide. Next slide. Yes. So this is something that you can see is a grid system. So the top one is different, and the bottom one is also divided into two parts, right? So you can say grid systems definitely will help you to improve your website's UI or UX, or your app's UI or UX, and that will further enhance the user's experience as well as the brand that you are trying to make, right? Okay, so the next slide. So this is also another example. So we are a part of GDSC, Google's Developer Student Club. So YouTube is something that uh, Google has created over the years, and this is the thing that that YouTube uses nowadays. So can we move on to the next slide? So you can see that there is a grid here also. So we can see a clear grid. On the top left, we have our video, the primary piece of information on the web page. Below that, we have video name, some metadata, the channel name, and on the right part, we can see all the relevant videos that a user might see. So we have divided the information, all the information that we want to convey on a web page using grid systems. So we can say that the screen is more organized in this way, right? So YouTube has done some iterations, and after that, they have implemented this grid, right? So this is something that we can learn. So let's move on. Okay, so this is an activity. So we will be doing this at the end, and I will also be showing what it should be look it should look like, right? So this is an information, right? Like right part is some information about a person, a resume text. So you have to edit it in such a way that it looks pleasing, and we have grids as well as information hierarchy and color also, all the things that we have learned previously. Okay, so we will be looking at this at the end of the session. So just wait and we will. So you can part just give this a link. So I will just give this link. You can check this out, and you can also try it, and we will talk more about this at the end of the session. Okay, next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now let's move on to the product design part. So Subhanjali will be talking about this. So over to
Okay.
Subhanjali.
Yeah. Hello, guys. I'm Subhanjali, and as you can see on your screens, now we'll be talking about product design. So let's discuss product design. Next slide. Okay, so this one's a bit easier. Product design is basically the act of designing a product. Next slide. Okay, so I want all of you to think about what a product is, what you would define a product is. So take a moment to write this down. You can send your responses in the chat box. Does anybody have any input? Okay, thing which companies are just go. Okay, finale from our side. Okay, a useful thing. A product is consumable, usable. Okay, so okay, product is a solution. Okay. Okay, all of you, it seems you have a good idea of what a product is, but I'll give you a simple definition. Okay, next slide. A product is a solution to a problem. Next slide. More specifically, a product is a solution to a user's problem. Next slide. Okay. Okay. Now let's pretend we're a new product team, maybe a startup. What are some of the problems that we might face? Next slide. Okay, for most new product teams, these are the issues they'll face: a lack of time, lack of funding, and poor understanding of the customers. Next. Like any other team, our job is to mitigate the problems we'll face. To do so, it is important to build efficiently, measure success, learn from the measurements, and repeat. Okay, next. Okay. On the screen, you guys can see a cycle, right? We call this the build, measure, learn cycle. The idea is that you build a product, measure success, learn from the success and failures, and then repeat. The key is that the faster you move, the better your product will get. Unfortunately, most of the time goes into building. So a question all of you might have is, how can we build incredibly fast? Next. Okay, so this is what Eric Rice says. He's an author of a really famous book called The Lean Startup, and he says that the product team should aim to build this, the version of a new product or service which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with the least amount of effort. Next. Okay. So, and he calls it this, the minimum viable product or MVP, as we'll be calling it in the slides ahead. It is the product which takes the least amount of time to develop, but gives you the most amount of opportunity to learn. Next. Okay. In practice, the MVP can mean a lot of different things. We're going to go through 5 different versions of an MVP to get the creative juices flowing and show you how little time you can put in and still learn a ton. We'll be discussing wireframing, landing page, demo video, Wizard of Oz, and of course, a working prototype. Next. Okay. For our purposes, a wireframe is basically a drawing, as you can see on your screen. It's a very rough drawing, okay? So this drawing should just have enough information for you to ask meaningful questions. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let's say you're building an email client and you're deciding where to put the new mail button. You could draw out a few versions and run simple tests where you'd show the different wireframes and ask them to send a new email, taking note of any friction. For the purposes of testing, these wireframes don't have to be very defined. Like I said, they don't have to be perfect. In fact, the rougher the sketch, the better. Because see, if the sketch looks very refined or very perfect, users will be very cautious of like what to say to you. They'll think you've put in so much time in building this wireframe that they'll be scared to criticize you, or like so this will prevent you from getting an honest feedback because the user is scared of hurting your feelings. So it's better the rougher it looks. So if it's rough, they'll think you haven't put in a lot of time into it, and they'll be far more honest, and honest feedback is what we want. Next. Okay, next we have a landing page. Many times you might have an idea, but you might not be sure people actually want to use it. In that case, you can spin up a simple landing page. On the landing page, you can describe your fake product or service and collect signups. Once a user has filled out the sign up, you can thank them for their interest. This is a cheap and easy way to collect interest or lack thereof without actually building the entire solution. Next. Okay, so there's now we come to demo videos. Okay, can you play this video?
Okay, my name's Drew, and I'll be showing you a quick tour of Dropbox, which is a new way to store and share files online. What makes Dropbox different is that it just works, and there isn't any complicated setup or interface to learn. So let's get started. I've already installed Dropbox on a Windows PC and put a bunch of files in, and now I want to sync these files to my Mac. So to do that, I just installed Dropbox, and now I'm linking my Mac to my account. So in a second, my account will be linked, and you can see that the files that were on my Windows PC will start coming down. And what we're looking at is my Dropbox folder, which looks and acts like any other folder except for 2 things. 1, these little green icons that indicate files are up to date, and 2, anything in my Dropbox is synced across all of my computers and to the web. And you'll notice that when I make changes, everything syncs up pretty quickly. And as another example, I'm going to log in my Windows PC, where you'll see that not only are the changes from my Mac already here, but if I make another change to a file, so for example, this picture of a platypus, and then I hit save, the change begins uploading immediately. And when I go back to my Mac, the change is reflected in a matter of seconds. So the point is, if you've ever worked with multiple computers or carried around a USB drive or emailed yourself files from work, you can see this is a much easier way of managing your stuff. And we also protect you from the bad things that can happen to your files. So if I delete a bunch of stuff, we have this web interface where you can not only get to your files in case you're not at one of your computers, so here are the contents of my Dropbox here, but we have this show deleted files link where you can select a file that you've deleted, and then you have an option to bring it back in a couple of clicks. So I'll do that, and instantly the file's back. And not only do you have the option of restoring the most recent version, but actually any prior version of a file, because every time you make a change, Dropbox saves a snapshot. And Dropbox is also very efficient about the way it handles changes to files and sends only the pieces that change. So in the case of the platypus picture, just sending the delta saved over 80% of the bandwidth. So that covers a lot of how we make it easy to access and protect your own files, but the other half of what we do revolves around making it really easy to share and put files online. So normally if I want to share something, I have to send an email attachment or something like that. But Dropbox has this special public folder where every file you put in here has a URL associated with it. So I can get a public link, and then I can paste that into an IM window or an email or a blog post, and it does what you'd expect. So that's great for individual files, but we also make it possible to share entire folders. So all I have to do is right-click any folder, and then there's this option to share. And then all I have to do is enter in email addresses of people I want to share the folder with. And then when I hit share, the folder that's on my computer will also appear on their desktops. And as a better example of this, I'll actually accept an invitation from one of my friends who invited me to join his shared folder. So when I hit accept, inside my Dropbox, there will appear this Dropbox Trade Secrets folder with files from his computer in there. And then when I put files inside, those will appear on his desktop instantly. And then when I refresh, you can see the changes reflected. Okay, so shared folders are great for collaborating on projects, or sharing documents, or photos, or music, or any kind of file. But the last thing I'm going to show you is the easiest way to put photos online. So Dropbox comes with this built-in photo gallery, which is probably a lot like the ones you've seen before, except that the difference is ours is tightly integrated into the desktop. And I'll show you what I mean. So if you have a folder full of photos, like this one here, all you have to do is drag it into the special photos folder inside your Dropbox. And when you refresh the photo gallery, Dropbox actually creates a photo album with the same name. And all of your albums include these secret links that you can then share. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how much easier Dropbox makes it to share files. And with that, we'll wrap up. We're still in private beta, but you can visit us and sign up to give it a shot at www.getdropbox.com. Thanks.
So that was just an example of a demo video. And as you can see, like Divyam has said in the comment chat box, that this is a very old version of Dropbox. And the new version has significantly improved. So you can compare the new version and this version and see how design actually changes with time. Okay. And now, okay, with today's computer editing softwares, people can make transformers look real. If that's the case, why don't we use those softwares to make a solution look real? That way, we can create a real demo video of a solution that doesn't exist. Then we can go around and show it to people to gain insights about our idea without having to actually build the whole thing. Next. Next slide. Okay. Lastly, we reach Wizard of Oz. So to anybody who's seen the movie Wizard of Oz, they know that the wizard isn't truly magic. Instead, he's a man standing behind a curtain making people think he's magic. With this MVP, we'd be doing the same thing. Imagine we want to build an e-commerce website. We can build the front end pretty easily, but the back-end technology and business fulfillment processes required would take a ton of time and money to set up. Why don't we just build a front end that sends an email to you every time an order is made? Then, when you get an email, you can just drive to the store, buy whatever the user ordered, and ship it to them. The user will think it was all done automatically, but really, you're running the show. Next. Sorry, just okay. I cannot see the screen actually.
Okay, so it is visible. Build an MVP.
Okay. Okay, so with this, this is an activity. So with this, we've actually come to the end of the presentation, and these we have a few activities. We have the Q&A session starting now. So those of you who have any questions, please send me your questions in the chat
So if
box.
you have any question, you can ask now, and post that we can do the activity if you like,
Yeah.
or we can answer some questions, something that you didn't understand in the slides, or something that you want to do for solutions challenge, how to do it, anything. Okay, so we can move on to the first activity. If there is no doubt, you can just compare how the the visual changes affect the user interface or user experience. So Parth, can we like show the talk? So when you open that bit.ly link, so you must have seen that text has been written one after the other. So like I have done this implementation, this visual change. So you can now see that we have implemented the things that we learned during this session. So the first thing was visual design. So visually you can now see that it is more appealing to the user. So if an HR, a company representative, or a company recruiter sees this resume for the first time, it is something that he will look at. It is not like he will just discard it, right? So visually it is more pleasing. And the second thing that we learned was color. So we have used different colors, so dark and light. So you can see that color is also improving the visual appearance. And the next thing that we saw was the grid system. So you can see that we have divided the information into some grids. We have divided into some topics and listed down the information. So using these three things, we have made something that is more visually appealing, and the end user will definitely uh, like benefit from this, will benefit from this. Okay, so if you have any question, you can just ask. Hello, or you can type. So tell me, how many of you have attended the last session? Okay. Okay, great. So many of you have attended it. So in the last session, we learned how we can turn an idea into reality, how we can prototype, make a small model, and learn from it. So now from this we have from this session we have learned how we can visually think about it, how we can move on towards our product, right? And in the next session we will talk about the technical aspects, how you can do that thing technically. Otherwise, from the UI or UX perspective, you can definitely uh, improve your product using these things, and the end user will definitely benefit it and will use your product. And you can also enlist these concepts in the solution challenge, which is for the United Nations, I think, sustainable development goals. So if any of you is planning to do that, definitely I think you will improve your end product using these concepts. So okay then. So I don't have anything else to share with you today. So is there anything you can just ask me?
Anybody, any questions?
Okay, so giving example. So what sort of example? So what you can build?
Sir, sir, UI UX related any example by coding?
Okay, so UI thing is different and coding is different. So firstly, whenever you like कभी भी अगर आप कोई प्रोडक्ट बनाते हो तो सबसे पहले डायरेक्ट तो कोडिंग नहीं करने लग जाओगे. सो फर्स्टली यू विल प्रिपेयर व्हाट आई नीड टू डू, व्हाट द एंड प्रोडक्ट शुड लुक लाइक. तो जैसे वो हमने पढ़ा, वायर फ्रेमिंग करेंगे, डेमो वीडियो बनाएंगे, प्रोटोटाइप करेंगे, उसको वापस इम्प्रूव करेंगे थ्रू इटरेशंस. सो दिस इज द थिंग दैट वी डू फर्स्टली. तो सबसे पहले डिजाइन करेंगे, देन कोडिंग वाला पार्ट आएगा, राइट. सो आज हमने क्या पढ़ा कि यूआई वाइज उसको कैसे अपीलिंग बना सकते हैं. एंड इन द नेक्स्ट सेशन वी विल टॉक अबाउट हाउ यू कैन डू द टेक्निकल एस्पेक्ट और कोडिंग पार्ट, उसको रियलिटी में कैसे कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं. अगर पहले ही उसको अगर कोडिंग करने लग जाए बट इट इज नॉट विजुअली अपीलिंग, तो it will not benefit any of us, right. So you can
Yes, sir.
take example of some great apps that we have today. So like anyone has used Zomato or Instagram, so you can see there that the UX has improved a lot, user experience. So अगर if you like buy one time, अगर आप एक बार ऑर्डर करोगे तो it is like very easy. तो यूजर एक्सपीरियंस बहुत उन्होंने इम्प्रूव कराया यूजिंग इटरेशंस. तो उनका जो फर्स्ट डिजाइन होगा बिफोर दे बिकेम यूनिकॉर्न एंड ऑल दैट, तो वो वाला डिजाइन एंड आज का डिजाइन में लाइक जमीन आसमान का अंतर होगा. सो हाउ डिड दे लर्न दैट? दे लर्न दैट यूजिंग इटरेशंस,
यूजिंग कस्टमर फीडबैक.
यूजिंग कस्टमर
जैसे
फीडबैक
10 साल
आल्सो.
पुराने फेसबुक अलग ही था एंड आज फेसबुक का यूआई अलग है. इंस्टाग्राम भी स्टार्टिंग में काफी नूब टाइप था एंड आज काफी अच्छा यूआई है.
आज बहुत यूएक्स बहुत अच्छा है उसका आज.
Sir, but multiple iterations can be sometimes very irritating for the user also, no? So we have
Yes,
to take care of that iterations be less and much more effective, I think.
So
yes,
that
yes,
is why we don't, bring in huge changes. We start by small changes.
Yeah,
That's
gradually.
yes.
less annoying. Yeah.
Ma'am, but small changes means more number of iterations required. Means I think.
Yeah, it does. But like, if you bring in a drastic change, then if you bring in a really drastic change, that is more annoying. So you have to, you have to find a middle ground.
Yes, definitely. So you can check out some of the startups that are there. So you can check out a startup that I am currently working for. So you can check out their website. They also have an app on Android.
This is HapRamp. Actually, ये हमारे super seniors का ही startup है, if you don't
Yes.
know, by
So,
Pratyush Singh sir, who is their technical lead, and
right. So if you follow this company, this is currently a startup, you can see how they are making the design changes. So they are making iterations and they are taking user feedback and they are implementing that again. So this is from our college only, right?
yeah,
So,
exactly. मतलब today's workshop was more about UX and product design. मतलब UI is something कि दिखता कैसा है, and UX is user experience कि user को experience कैसा हो रहा है, is it like वो enjoy कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे हैं. Like कई सारे apps ऐसे होंगे जो तुमने देखा होगा कि functionality same है but तुम्हारा कोई एक particular favorite app है.
so like you must have heard about Signal and Telegram. So when WhatsApp was like a privacy issue was there, so Signal was something that came up as a like messaging app, right? So would you prefer Signal over WhatsApp?
No.
No, I don't think so. So WhatsApp is something which we have been using for past few years or so, like a lot of years, I think, and it has done many iterations in its UI and UX. So we have become fond of it. So you won't directly move on to another product, right? So this is something that we need to learn, that over iterations you can make a very good product.
Exactly. और फॉर एग्जांपल तुम जब खुद का कोई स्टार्टअप करोगे या फिर जिस भी कंपनी में जॉब करोगे, उनका जो प्रोडक्ट होगा, तो ऐसा तो है नहीं कि एक बार बना के छोड़ दिया एंड यू विल एक्सपेक्ट कि अब जिंदगी भर ये प्रोडक्ट ही हमें कमा के देगा. तुम्हें पता है कि मार्केट में कंपटीशन बहुत है, तो कोई और इससे बेटर ला सकते हैं कभी भी. तो तुम चाहोगे कि हाँ, यू विल want to improve each and every time within every few weeks or months. इसलिए कस्टमर फीडबैक भी जरूरी. That's why this cycle is continued in almost all organizations. एक बार तुमने ये रोक दिया ये सोच के कि हाँ हम नहीं करेंगे, हमारा तो ऑलरेडी अच्छा चल रहा है, we don't need any improvement, तभी कोई कंपटीशन आ जाएगा and they will take over you. इसलिए कंपनीज
Definitely. तो improvement definitely is something that companies do. तो definitely अगर किसी के पास कोई आइडिया है कि स्टार्टअप का ही आइडिया है और अ प्रोडक्ट आइडिया दैट यू वांट टू इम्प्लीमेंट, दैट यू थिंक भाई ये मैंने सोचा था कि ऐसा मुझे बनाना है, तो यू कैन शेयर इट और यू कैन आस्क क्वेश्चंस, लाइक अभी नहीं, बाद में भी कभी, आई एम अवेलेबल. सो आई एम आल्सो डॉट चेक if you are from IIIT Vadodara, right? So you can contact me directly or Subhanjali. तो अगर कोई आइडिया को अगर बनाना नहीं आ रहा है, यू नीड इंस्पिरेशन और कैसा दिख रहा है फॉर मेंटरशिप और समथिंग, सो यू कैन ऑलवेज कांटेक्ट मी. और स्टार्टअप में भी अगर किसी को आइडिया है कि भाई मुझे स्टार्टअप करना है, तो ये वाला प्रोडक्ट का आइडिया कैसा है, इसको मैं ऐसा बनाऊंगा, तो वी कैन ऑल्सो डिस्कस दैट थिंग ऑल्सो.
रिव्यू ले सकते हो.
हाँ, रिव्यू ले सकते हो.
On Discord too. Like फिर पर्सनली बात कर लो.
हाँ.
And also like for example, GitHub तुम लोगों को पता ही होगा, but GitHub के और भी alternatives हैं, Bitbucket and GitLab.
So we
But
use
mostly
GitLab.
Yeah, but mostly लोग GitHub use करते हैं
GitHub use
because
करते हैं.
user experience काफी better है बाकी दोनों से. And they keep on improving. उन्होंने अपना UI भी काफी अच्छा किया है पिछले कुछ सालों में. That is the main
So
thing.
yes.
Sir, one thing I want to ask that the Go Socio website means startup which you have pointed out, how many people are currently using that app?
So
Or
I
yes,
think
yes.
it's maps.
So if you look on the app store, Play Store, Android में, so there are more than 5 lakh downloads on the Play Store.
and
Also
also,
we
sir,
are,
I've seen that more than 20,000 people are active, means they are.
yes, definitely they are active. So we are currently working on towards our third iteration, the third version of our app design wise. So that is something, so you can definitely take inspiration from this, motivation from this. And ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई भी आइडिया को रियलिटी बनाना इतना हार्ड है. सो इंस्टीट्यूट आल्सो हेल्प्स. सो अगर सही में लाइक अगर अच्छा आइडिया है तुम्हारे पास, तो डेफिनेटली वी कैन वर्क ऑन इट एंड इम्प्रूव इट एंड डेफिनेटली मेक इट अ रियलिटी, राइट? सो
You know this startup HappyRamp ये हमारे super seniors का है. They passed out in 2018 and 2020 में they got a funding of around $1 million
$1 million
from Anand Mahindra. And basically it's about blockchain, social media platform on blockchain for
Yes.
content creators.
Yes, so this is
उनका
something that we should be proud of as a college,
Yeah,
as an institute, right?
Uh,
So you can also do this. Yes, sir.
and the founder is Shubhendra Vikram sir. Their technical lead is Pratyush Singh, Mufid Ansari.
Yes.
तुमने शायद GitHub पे देखा होगा इनमें से किसी कुछ को.
Also, if you want to follow them, you can check them out on LinkedIn as well as Twitter. And if you want to work here, you can also as an intern or as a full-time employee. So this is something that it is of our college only. So feel free. And also, if you have any question, you can ask, or we can just end the session. And we will see you all in the next session.
Yeah, in the next workshop, we'll be talking about the technical aspects, like
Yes.
whatever your idea is for the product, then what are you supposed to use? Like what is the deployment environment, if it is web or Android में करना चाहिए, iOS में करना चाहिए. That all will be discussed in the next session. This will be
Yes.
taken by Shivansh.
Yeah.
Who's your web lead?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay, if not any more questions, then you can leave. And Anisha, you can stop the recording.
Yes.
Thank you, Divyam, and thank you, Subhanjali.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So we will be here for another 5 minutes after the recording stops. If you have any question, just ask or type. कुछ भी पूछ लो यार.
Off the topic भी पूछना हो तो पूछ लो.
Off the topic भी पूछ सकते हो. Just stop the recording, Anisha.